What is going on, guys? Xbox 2 podcast is now live, coming to you straight to your eardrums. I don't even know why I said that, but anyways, what a terrible, terrible intro for a terrible, terrible show. I always try to think of something new every time we start a show, but anyways, what's going on, guys? I'm Randall Thor19, the man with the million, here with my co-host of Xbox 2, the one and only Jez Corden of Windows Central. What's going on, buddy?
Hi, how's it going, everyone?
It's going pretty good. It's going pretty good. How are you doing? I sense this is going to be a very divisive podcast. There might be some insults thrown around at each other. If it gets heated, don't worry. Me and Jez still love each other. You know, this will be like your parents fighting when you were younger.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. So what have you been up to, man? When I messaged you earlier today, ready for the podcast, you said you've been busy and working for 12 hours. What are you up to?
Well, sorry about that. As you can tell, I'm pretty tired. It's 11 p.m. in Germany. I have been going through gigabytes and gigabytes of Project Scorpio stuff. So
you and the Project Scorpio stuff.
Yeah, got quite a lot of information on Scorpio. I mean, it's highly technical information, but nothing that people don't already know. But I got some interesting pictures and some interesting video clips. Like you might have seen me post a clip of the LCD thing last week. That was from this cache of data. So I've been going through that and preparing articles for that. But also, it's been build this week today, in fact. Microsoft Build conference, where Microsoft tries to explain to developers why they should develop on Microsoft platforms. It was very, very boring indeed. All about AI, Cortana, and a lot of enterprise stuff. The fun stuff should be tomorrow when they talk about Windows, maybe a little bit of Xbox stuff like last year. So look out for that live tomorrow, streaming on Microsoft's Channel 9 website.
Channel, right?
They've got a Beam channel as well. Channel 9 Beam channel.
Right.
Yeah. So there might be a little bit of Xbox news tomorrow. Maybe not much, but there might be a little tiny bit.
I mean, we're starving for some info, Jez. I saw some people in chat asking for more info from you, but you just don't have any to share right now, huh?
Yeah, I just nothing major to share. No, for pretty much everything about Scorpio is out there now. I know some of the E3 stuff that's going to be revealed, but I'm not gonna spoil that. Sorry, but other than that, yeah, I think most of it's pretty much out there now. We just need to know the price, the launch date, and I think there might be
the games that come with it.
And the games that come with it, obviously. But I think there might be a couple of other surprises that Microsoft have kept under wraps. Because you remember how a couple of years ago that they announced backwards compatibility, and some people thought maybe, but nobody knew for sure. They kept that information pretty secret. So there might be something like that. We don't know. But Gary asks, can you share which girl is best waifu in Persona 5? Haven't played Persona 5 because I don't have a PlayStation.
I don't have a PlayStation either, but I have said when it gets down to $200, I will pick one up because that's about roughly the price I'm willing to pay for some of the games I want to play on the system.
I don't have room for one on my desk. There's just not enough room.
But I mean, you got enough room for Windows phones. You got enough room for a PlayStation.
No, my Windows phone's in my drawer now. It's done.
Oh, it's done.
The dream is over.
Jez, I'm sorry. I mean, I know
my Android phone is in the post.
I mean, what does it feel like to put something down like that? To like love something so much like Windows Phone, realize that it's never going to be anything you ever wanted it to be, and then you have to get a competitor's product. What's that like? Tell me about that.
It hurts, man. It hurts like Iron Wolf probably had when he switched to PlayStation. But
yeah.
I
didn't expect you to say that, but okay.
I couldn't think of another comparison off the top of my head. But yeah, it hurt, man. It hurt. But
so you're gonna go start working for Android Central or what?
Nah. Well, the thing is, someone at Microsoft told me that most Windows users use Android, so it's probably relevant to our audience anyway. But enough about the phones, Rand. Enough about them phones. Let's
I
talk about
know.
games.
That's right. Let's talk about games. I want to save the prey discussion for a little bit later. And you mentioned Windows Phone being done. So I figured we'd talk about, well, the kind of big news that happened today. Kotaku broke a story pretty much saying that BioWare Edmonton, I believe, is the one behind Mass Effect
Montreal.
Andromeda. Montreal, okay. I always get confused which ones. Edmonton's like the A studio or the real BioWare, because then BioWare Austin works on the Star Wars stuff. So BioWare Montreal, they were created to make Mass Effect 2 and Mass Effect 3 DLC. Their first big proper game was Mass Effect Andromeda, and Kotaku wrote the story today that a lot of their employees are on the move, either to go work at BioWare Edmonton to help on Darwin, I think is the code name for their new IP, Destiny Killer.
Codename Dylan.
Dylan.
Destiny Killer.
And then the other.
Is that what it's called? Wow.
I was told that BioWare's new IP is supposed to be a Destiny Killer. So I don't know what exactly that means, but that's what I was told. And the other employees left to go join EA Motive to help working on Star Wars, and that means nobody's basically at the studio anymore to work on Mass Effect, and Mass Effect as a franchise is on hold, put on ice, maybe to unearth at a later date. But I feel this is the end of Mass Effect for good. So
no. Oh God, it's painful.
You don't think so?
I don't think it's gone for good, man. It's just such a huge brand name. They can't literally put that on ice. But then they kind of did that already with Dead Space as well, which was a pretty big franchise in its day. And this is EA we're talking about here, so maybe it is dead. I don't know. But I'd like to think that BioWare's A team, the Edmonton team, I would like to think that they'd get back to Mass Effect in the future and make a good one again. But man, Mass Effect Andromeda needed at least another 6 months in this is 100% EA's fault. It's not BioWare Montreal's fault at all. When you play that game, you can just sort of feel that it has the elements of a great game, a really great game. But then it's just broken. The game was just broken in so many ways. Like quest continuity was broken, dem faces was broken. So many things were broken in that game. Like a ridiculous amount of things were broken in the game, and it needed another 6 months in development. But EA wouldn't let it have 6 months in development because they wanted to get its sales into their quarterly earnings report. At least that's what I've heard. And as such, Andromeda was rushed out, and it sucked. And now, GG, the franchise is dead.
GG. See, I love Mass Effect, right? In fact, now that school's over for the semester, I'm gonna go back and finish the single player Mass Effect Andromeda. Mass Effect series. I don't really have a lot of time, especially when school's like around to play. But no, I'm going back to it. The thing is, here's the thing.
I've got 135 hours in that game.
I mean that's quite a lot, and I know people that are up there with you. The problem is, I almost liken this to. Well, I'll get to this point in a minute, but I feel like when you take a revered franchise like Mass Effect, right, and then you pass it along to basically first-time devs, because now I'm going to say this right, the Edmonton studio, or the Montreal studio, they had never made a proper full game before, ever. No. This was their first full game, right? Yeah. And when you hand over a franchise that is as big as Mass Effect is, because Mass Effect is a huge mega franchise, or at least was at one point, and you basically hand it over to a developmental studio who this is their first full game, you're going to probably get a lot of issues. You know, I almost feel like if Edmonton, the proper studio, was making Mass Effect Andromeda, we probably would have gotten a completely different and better game, right? But they're busy working on the future. They're busy working on a new IP, a games of a service game a la Destiny, right? Because as Phil said last week, and we talked about, games as a service is basically what the industry is moving to, and we'll even talk about the Halo 5 stuff, which
That's
Pachter
what
said.
gamers are moving to, man. The industry moves where gamers
Well,
are
it
moving
is.
to.
So now you have Mass Effect Andromeda being made by a bunch of first timers, and you hear about quality control issues. You hear about outsourcing, like they outsources the facial animation and things like that. You hear about a huge like power struggle within the company towards the end of the dev cycle that changed the scope of a game in a large fashion. And you realize that, you know what, the game had been delayed quite a lot, and EA was like, we need to get the game out now. You're right. If they would have left the game for another year, like just delayed it a year, it probably would have been in better straits. But that's another year, and that's more money down the pipeline. So EA's like, push it out the door, and then the sales comes out, and it's not that good. And we've seen what happens when franchises, when their sales kind of peak and then plateau and then start going back down with EA. EA just takes the approach of, you're done. They did it with Dead Space. Even though Dead Space was a good seller, obviously not on the caliber of Mass Effect, they canned the franchise, right? Franchise is on ice. Mirror's Edge,
that
they
was
brought
their
it
fault
back.
as well.
Okay,
That was their fault as well, because they tried to put the service model into a single player game with Dead Space 3, making you pay for the crafting system. So that was a victim of the service industry as well, before we really had this games as a service thing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So many games
Right,
are falling under this bus now.
Well, because it's true, but like, so now that Mass Effect is returning, less money essentially than the previous ones, EA's kind of seen the writing on the wall with the franchise. Like, it's on the downward slope. So they're like, you know what? We have bigger things. We have Star Wars Battlefront, which would be way bigger than Mass Effect. We have this new IP that proper BioWare is working on that could potentially be bigger than Mass Effect. So they're sending, and they basically, Kotaku in their article said that BioWare Edmonton or BioWare Montreal is now basically a support studio. And even though they say Mass Effect's on ice, I highly, highly doubt we will see the game again. And you know what else sucks about this? Think about this for 1 second, Jez. Now that they're a support studio, what are the likelihood chances that you see a Scorpio patch for Andromeda?
Oh, snap. That's a good point. Well, in theory, let's say in theory, it won't be too hard for them to make a Scorpio patch for Andromeda, because the assets are already there on the PC version. So hopefully they'll be able to fit that in. But maybe not. Maybe you're right. Maybe they'll just think, well, no one's going to be playing this game by the time Scorpio comes out, and we'll never get that. We'll never get that patch. Maybe you're right.
Which is disappointing.
So depressing. It is disappointing.
It sucks because I love single player games, and this is kind of the conversation we talked about with Phil, right? Like, and I even had this conversation on TXR with Maka on Monday. Like, he played the Edith Finch game on PS4, right? He was in love with that game, and he said, like, if single player went away, games like that would be gone, and it would be a huge detriment to the industry and a huge detriment to him personally. And I feel the same. We'll talk about this later, but I feel the same way with Prey. Even though Prey has issues, I feel like Prey is still a game that is needed in this industry. Prey is a single player only game. It doesn't have any microtransactions, doesn't have any DLC. It is basically a game that, it's like a 10-year-old game, basically. It's a game from last gen before any of this stuff came out. And I feel like if the industry moved past that, like, we wouldn't get games like Prey anymore. And that would be so disheartening, and it would kill me. And so you have one of the Star Wars of last gen, Mass Effect. They put it out now, and it doesn't. I mean, look, let's not mince any words here. If Mass Effect sold well, like really well, they'd be working on the Mass Effect Andromeda sequel right now. You know this. I know this. Everybody in chat should know this. Just like if Quantum Break sold extremely well for Microsoft, they'd be making Quantum Break 2, right? Like if Microsoft announced Quantum Break sold 2.7 million copies like Horizon Zero Dawn did in 2 weeks, fucking Remedy would be busting their asses on Quantum Break because they realized they'd have a huge potential for the game. And if Mass Effect did the same, then the studio would be working on a sequel for that, because then it shows that there's demand for the game. Obviously, there's not. Obviously, the sales numbers versus their potential profit margins or losses scared the shit out of EA enough to the point where they're going to try to fortify their other studios making maybe more surefire hits. I mean, do you think am I correct on that assumption, Jez?
I think so. I mean, they've got the Star Wars license, and they not only do they have the Star Wars license. This part's important. They've got the license to add story to the Star Wars canon. So they are basically making official Star Wars content, and that is way more valuable than Mass Effect will ever be. That's just a fact. So maybe even if Mass Effect Andromeda had done pretty well, maybe the fact of the reality is that they would have shifted more devs to work on Star Wars games while they've got access to this license. And I wouldn't be. I mean, BioWare are also they're working on a Star Wars game as well, as in addition to this Project Dylan, right? Or is Project Dylan the Star Wars game? I don't know.
Well, I mean, they do work. They do work on the Star Wars Old Republic game.
No,
I think BioWare Austin's on that.
Another
okay,
one.
So the studio that made Dead Space, Visceral Games, is working on a Star Wars game, right? And Respawn is working on a Star Wars game. I'm not sure BioWare itself, any of the BioWare studios, are actually working on a Star Wars game that isn't the Old Republic. In fact, I want to say they're not. I want to say the two Star Wars games that are making are made by Visceral, and one being made by Respawn.
No, they are working on a Star Wars game.
Which one?
When Shadow Realms was cancelled, EA said at their conference. Oh no, never mind.
So I'm pretty sure they're
never mind.
Yeah, because the Edmonton studio is working on Dylan, which is the Destiny killer, and Austin.
What if it's a Star Wars Destiny killer?
Star Wars Destiny killer. Oh, but man, I mean,
all over that.
I'm just disappointed by this. I know a lot of like, because I see some people mentioning like Nier Automata and Neo and chat and stuff, and those are strictly single player kind of games, and they've done well. Yeah, I mean, like, honestly, it's because the budget of those games are way smaller, and that's not saying anything disparaging against those games. But the budget of Mass Effect is well beyond the budget of Nier Automata.
That's the point, though. The budget for these single player games is just well overblown. If you can make an amazing game like Nier Automata, and it is amazing, on a smaller budget, on a smaller scale, just focusing on good gameplay and good story elements, use Xbox 360 graphics with like modern resolution, then why not do that? If it will make the game more profitable. Knock the visuals back, because that's basically what Nier Automata does and what Neo does and stuff like that. There's been compromises made, and like the Surge comes out this week, and that looks pretty good as well. But it's not going to be like the Surge isn't going to be this like massive, huge AAA game that blows everyone away. It's going to be like a maybe semi-satisfying AA game that's on a smaller sort of budget. So. Yeah, like Bagari says in chat, you don't need a huge AAA budget to make a good game. And I think this is partially like the Grand Theft Auto Witcher effect, because like The Witcher 3 is just some kind of special, amazing outlying game, which was just like so detailed, so huge, and so vast, and all the side quests mattered. And on top of those side quests, it had all the fetch gathering sort of treasure hunt style quests, and then you had the main quests, which are amazing and memorable, and like all the characters are memorable, and the story is memorable, and the voice acting is great, and it's like, wow, what is the budget of this game? And a lot of people forget that The Witcher had a big budget, but on top of that, it was subsidized by the Polish government. So, in America, that would have had an even bigger budget. Or in the UK, it would have had an even bigger budget because it wouldn't have been subsidized by the government to the same degree. And so when you get games like The Witcher 3, and then you get companies like EA that think, oh, we have to make a game that's like The Witcher 3, and then Mass Effect Andromeda goes open world. It didn't need to be open world. They could have made it like Mass Effect 3 and Mass Effect 2, which was sort of like connected by hubs, or like even like Deus Ex Human Revolution, where it had like these open world hubs with sort of linear-ish maps. There was nothing wrong with that format. It would have been much smaller budget, would have had a much better content density, and it would have been like, 30 hours long instead of 100. I mean, Mass Effect Andromeda, I played Mass Effect Andromeda for 130 hours, but a good 100 hours of that was pure filler. It was me driving around desert planets, killing respawned, recolored monsters for 100 hours. I have no idea why I did that. And at least the combat was really fun, because it was 100 hours that was vaguely fun, at least. But man,
Vaguely
if that
fun.
game
I like how you
took
said. I
30
like how you said it's vaguely fun. Like you're not sure if you were having fun or not.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I was just like addicted to using biotic
Well,
combos or something.
some
Because man,
people
I
in chat
love
are
biotic
saying,
combos.
wasn't Recore an attempt at this of making a franchise hit out of a smaller budget?
Well, that's the thing though. It has to actually be like, Recore's combat is not as good as Nier Automata's combat. It's just
Mm-hmm.
not. And where Nier Automata excelled, where Recore failed, was depth. Recore could have scaled back its open world maybe,
Mm-hmm.
and had a bit more RPG depth, maybe had more combat depth. I think they tried to make the combat simple and color coded. I think they were trying to aim for a younger audience. They bundled it with Banjo and made it a lower price point, and that was specifically. They said that to me, that it was specifically so like they could try and get younger audiences on board with it. But
Mm-hmm.
Recall could have been Nier Automata of last summer if it had just had a little bit more depth. So I think there is something there where like a lower budget game can succeed by scaling back less important things, but they need to have that depth, and you only get that depth if it's being led and managed by a talented studio who give a damn. And I feel like Scalebound, for example, had sort of been. I don't feel like Scalebound needed to have four player co-op. I feel that's a Microsoft thing. If they had focused Scalebound down a bit more and made it more like just a single player action game, maybe not even open world, it could have been Nier Automata of next year, but it wasn't meant to be, man. I think the industry's in a period of transition. I don't think single player games are going away. I think they just need to be rethought a little. They need to be a little bit more like Dark Souls. They need to be a little bit more like Nier Automata and Neo and stuff like that. And then leave the huge Witcher 3 style single player games to companies that have that talent. Because if you don't have that talent, don't try and get there. And when like BioWare in interviews, they were saying, "Oh, we were looking at The Witcher 3 when we were making Mass Effect Andromeda." Don't say that unless your game is as good as The Witcher 3, because
Right.
it wasn't. So yeah, I think there's some disruption, but I don't think single player games are going away. They just need to be rethought a little.
A little birdie told me about a week ago in a conversation. They asked me, do you honestly think EA is going to do another Mass Effect, implying that there was going to be another Mass Effect, and I said no, and he just kind of agreed with me. So I thought that was kind of interesting, and this was like a week ago. So it's always sad to see games like this, like especially since the game's been out for 2 months now, and you get the news be like, oh, by the way, like they're just support studio now. So that's like one less franchise being done, and it's always depressing when that happens. And it's like, and then you hear about their next game or Bioware, and the reason it was delayed, remember, because EA just did in their conference call, the reason Dylan was delayed a full year was to work on the live service aspect. They have to get that right, and you realize that, like, Jesus, like what was gaming 10 years ago, right? And then what will gaming look like 10 years from now? Because and that's kind of where the next topic I want to talk about before we get into Prey and things like that is, I don't know, did you see the Halo 5 news by chance?
That it actually
Michael
sold pretty well or something.
So Michael Pachter was he was doing his show or whatever, and about halfway through they were talking about Halo 5, and he was and the Microsoft people he had a conversation with them, and one of these, like, it was two big takeaways from this interview with Michael Pachter, right? I believe one of them, and I highly don't believe the other. He said that Microsoft has made more on the microtransactions in Halo 5 than any of the other DLCs in Halo, which I
believe that.
100%. He went on to mention that, like, 343 said that every time they release paid DLC for any of the other games, that the population would drop and would get cut in half. And we just saw that happen with Battlefield 1, and EA announced that like in the next Battlefields or whatever, they're gonna do something different with DLC. I think a lot of publishers are starting to realize that having free maps and free modes coupled with like cosmetic microtransactions is basically probably the better way to grow your game, instead of like kind of sending it to die, but I think companies are realizing you can make more money doing it this way than you can selling the DLC a la carte. But the other thing,
sorry, go on.
Well, no, go ahead. We'll get to.
Well, I was just going to say, like, if you try to get a game in one of the newer Battlefront DLCs, this is Battlefront 1, you just can't get a game because nobody owns the DLC.
Mm-hmm.
So it's ridiculous. They need to stop doing that, splitting the community thing.
I mean, it's the way of the future. I mean, part of me kind of likes that, because I like the idea of a game growing, like Rainbow Six Siege, seeing where it was in 2015, seeing where it is now. Like, a lot of other publishers are looking at Rainbow Six and being like, dude, if they can do that, we can do that, and let's copy what they're doing, right? But the other part that worries me a lot is, like, is gaming in 10 years going to be gambling? Because that's essentially what all this stuff is it not? Overwatch, Halo 5. Yeah, I know it's just cosmetic stuff for now, right? For now. 10 years from now, it may not be. But the point I'm trying to make is that these companies are making so much more revenue than before, like Overwatch, Rainbow, Halo, Gears, even though Gears didn't sell well initially, which we both heard from different people, right? And I got attacked for that last week on a podcast when I said Gears 4 underperformed. You heard similar stuff, did you not?
I did.
Yeah, but this isn't about Gears. The thing it's about is this idea of these fucking gambling card packs. And for sure, right now it's cosmetic stuff, and I don't have an issue with it. But the fact that the Chinese had to put a law where Overwatch and Blizzard had to actually give the drop rates for their items is pretty telling. And I wonder if
they didn't have to put a law. The reason they put that law into China is because free-to-play gambling games are huge in China. And they didn't put that law in specifically for Overwatch. They put it in for games that do have these exploitative gambling edges to them, which actually gets people addicted, and people do get addicted to gambling. I don't know why, I don't understand it myself, but people do. And the Chinese government are very wary of that sort of thing. So that's why they put that law in. And to be honest, it's a good law, because if you are spending money on a microtransaction, you deserve to know what the chances of you getting something that you want out of that card pack,
I completely agree.
I hate them too. I hate card packs, man. It's
How much money did you spend on Overwatch again? How much did you spend on those little boxes?
About £70. So it's like what, $90 maybe.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the game itself costs $60, Jez. The game itself you could buy for $40 or $30 at some point. You basically spent almost twice as much as. Look, I get it.
Yeah, I know.
I mean, I understand.
I'm part of the problem.
It's
basically a hypocrite, but
it's basically mobile gaming. They put it into regular gaming, right? I
really wanted this Diva skin, man.
I get it. Trust me. Maka's like that. He buys skins for his guns. Like, trust me. Like, I might be the only person who just, like, I don't really want to waste my money on stuff like that. But then again, of course, I am a person who buy Barbie and get achievements. So maybe I'm a little hypocritical on that aspect. However, look, 10 years from now, this might be a different story, but for now, I'm okay with it. I feel like it's, and it's not just Halo and Gears and Overwatch. It's also FIFA, it's Madden. I mean, that's how the empire of those, the ultimate packs kind of all started, is with basically those, right? And they're in basically every game now. Now, going back to Halo 5, Patra also mentioned that there's more people playing, or Microsoft told him there's more people playing Halo After 6 months, then there were previous Halos, I think up to 3 or whatever, which, hey, when you don't split your community by giving out paid DLC, that's not hard to believe. I believe Patcher on those 2 points. Where I find I'm a little weary on this next point, is that he also said that Microsoft told him that Halo 5 sold on par with all the other Halos, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I just find that incredibly hard to believe. Look, I believe that it outsold Halo 4, no problem. Okay, I'll believe that. If you told me that, sure, I believe it. I'll even believe it if you told me it outsold Halo Reach. Sure, I can buy that. But to say it sold on par with Halo 3 and Halo 2, I don't think so. Halo 3 came out at a time where Xbox was at its peak, its utter peak, and how much did it sell? Let's try to find out, Jez. Let's do some Google foo. Let's do some Google foo.
Don't use VG charts for God's sake.
Dude, I fucking can't stand when people use VG. Like, I'll see arguments on Twitter and shit, and people are like, "Well, according to VG charts," it's like, dude, VG charts is garbage and makes up all of its like numbers, right?
The thing is, man, you're not going to be able to get hard figures for this because
Microsoft
don't release them. I think there might be some additional context missing here. It might be more of a case of Halo 3 was subject to secondhand sales, whereas Halo 5 is less so because more copies are being sold digitally now than ever before. And also, the digital copies tend to be more expensive as well. So maybe Halo 5 is just more successful because monetization is more successful, and it's less about units sold and more about how you monetize that platform, So
here we go, Jess.
Isn't relevant as it
Here we go.
To be.
So this is the only issue I take with Patrick's thing about Halo. And guys, you guys knows I'm a huge Halo fan. I would love to see it back on, being as big as it is. But when they say on par, I don't know what they mean when it says on par. Does it mean because if you go to Halo Waypoint, right here, it says, developed by Bungie and published by Microsoft, Halo 3 is the concluding chapter in the Halo trilogy, an international award-winning series that grew into a global entertainment phenomenon, selling more than 14.5 million games worldwide, logging more than 650 million hours of multiplayer action on Xbox Live. And I took that right from a Halo Waypoint. I'm not using VG fucking charts like idiots all across the internet when they try to get so this is straight from Microsoft. Microsoft saying Halo 3 sold 14.5 million units. I just don't believe for a second that Halo 5 is at 14.5 million units. I just don't believe that at all.
Why not?
Now, because that's way 14.5 million to supposedly a user base of less than 30, or even if you say 30, that means 50% of the people who own an Xbox bought Halo 5 in less than 2 years. I don't know, that's would be even more impressive than Legend of Zelda's attach rate.
Well,
right?
I do think if they'd sold that much, I feel like Microsoft would have announced it somewhere. I can try and dig and find out if this is true. I got people, I got people.
I know you got people. I'm just saying, look, I wouldn't be surprised if Halo was approaching 10 million. Like, that wouldn't surprise me because even though these numbers are right from Microsoft, 14.5 million, I don't think those are like the final numbers.
Well, Samuel Talbot says Halo 5 sold 5 million in the first couple of months. And if the player base has grown since then, it stands to reason that more people have bought the game. And this isn't a case of everyone who played it on day one is still playing it. This is a case of new players coming in, So I think it could be true,
they also including games, copies of Halo 5 they gave away. You buy an Xbox One. I know all that stuff. Of
course they are.
14.5 million for Halo 5. Look, honestly, if Microsoft announced sales for Forza Horizon 3, right?
The thing is, man, based on how badly the Xbox was trashed in 2013, you can bet that a lot of the people who have stuck with Xbox through thick and thin are probably hardcore Halo fans.
No, you're right. I'm a hardcore Halo fan. It's the reason I own the system. I fell in love with Halo. I just find it hard to believe that Halo 5 did in 19 months what it took Halo 3, 7 years to do. When Halo was. You believe it? Get the
I
numbers,
believe,
Jazz.
I
You know what?
believe it. I'll get the numbers.
This is your homework assignment. Go find out how much Halo 5 sold. And
I will try and find out if it's true.
look, I also have this feeling like because Microsoft gave out sales numbers for Forza Horizon 3 because the game sold fantastic, right? They've been mum about Gears for whatever reasons. We think it's because the game underperformed. But are you telling me that like if Halo 5 was on about to break 15 million copies, you don't think Microsoft would be shouting that from the rooftops? Because
maybe they're waiting for it to break 15 million.
I don't know, because
Look,
I would say if it was about to hit 15 million, like
Rand, I'll find out. We're working on speculative. We're working on speculative data here,
true.
and assumptions make an ass of you and me.
I'm not.
So,
we're talking about what Pachter was saying. And he used the word
well,
on par. So I'm not sure what the word on par means in the context of that he was using it. You know what I'm saying?
I will find out. I will find out.
Yes.
No
So Jazz
worries,
is going.
Leave it with your old buddy.
All right. We Jazz will find this out, and we will. We'll get those numbers for you. I mean, hell, dude, I would be so happy if like Halo was like at 10 million, 12 million, 15 million. Like that would make my day because I love Halo. And I know some people in chat are probably like, you're just downplaying the news. It's like, not really. I just
You are Randall hater.
I am Pony Al Thor 19, right? How did your poll go about me the other day? You made up a poll if I was a Sony employee.
Well, both the answers were yes, so it doesn't matter.
You should have had one of the answers being no, just to see what it was, right?
Maybe. Most people clicked the top one, I suppose, because it was closer to their mouse. But
to their
more interesting poll to their mouse. I don't know. Mm-hmm. But a more interesting poll on my Twitter feed, which is relevant, which I tweeted because of State of Decay 2, was because I was talking to Josh Stein, who's a community manager at Microsoft, whether or not State of Decay should have cannibalism mechanics. And I tweeted, would you eat a human being to survive in the zombie apocalypse if you were starving to death? And over half of my followers, which is about 500 votes, said yes, to my surprise.
Really?
There you go. Yes.
Really?
So half of my followers are willing cannibals.
Willing cannibals? Well, I mean, you got to do what you got to do to survive. You know what I'm saying?
And you are as well.
I mean,
wow.
I don't know. I mean, like,
wow.
Would I eat somebody? I mean, the question is, how do you know I haven't already, Jez?
Oh,
you know? How do you know I haven't?
So now I'm wondering what's in that. Now I'm wondering what's in that soft serve cup in your avatar picture. Is that just like some blood and guts or something? I don't know.
Oh, wouldn't you like to know what's in? You had some of that at E3 though, so I mean, maybe you got the taste too. I don't know. No, you weren't at that event. You weren't. Which I'm sad, Jez. I won't be at E3 this year, man. We won't get to hang out and drink, and I won't be able to watch you get drunk and stuff like I did last year.
Well, I'll tweet you pictures, man. Me and Tim Dog will tweet you pictures.
You and Tim Dog. Well, you know, it'll be cool because after the week when you're back, we'll have a lot to talk about. Hopefully, for sure. But you know what? Let's talk about Prey. I feel like this is going to be an interesting segment. So you know what? I will let you talk about it first. You wrote a review on Windows Central, which was like what, over 3,000 words. You gave it a perfect. Words. You gave it a what? A 5 out of 5? A 10 out of 10?
5 out of 5, not 10 out of 10.
5 out of 5. One of the other 30 games you've given 5 out of 5 to in the last 2 years. So let the people know without spoilers. We're not going to spoil the story or anything like that. We're going to keep this spoiler free. Talk about what you really liked about the game and why you think it's as great as you think it is.
Prey is the best shooter I've played this gen. Honestly, it really is. And I'm surprised to be saying that because I'm a huge fan of Doom. I'm a huge fan of Wolfenstein: The New Order. And I'm a huge fan of Metro Redux. And various other really great shooters that have come out this year. But I think Prey is better than all of them. And I'll tell you for why. It's because the developers actually set out to make a super consistent world where everything in the whole game, everything in the game is relevant to the game's world. There's nothing in Prey that doesn't make any sense. Like, for example, in other games where you have progression systems, like say in Far Cry, for example, when you unlock skill points and you spend your skill points to suddenly become stronger, that's a gameplay mechanic. But it doesn't make sense in the story. There's no story relevance to that fact. Whereas in Prey, your progression system are the neuromods, which are not only relevant to the story, they are crucial to the story, because the way you spend those neuromods affects the outcome of the game, which I'm not going to spoil. So I love that everything in the game is cohesive to the story. And not only that, but all the NPCs in Prey have their own little stories. And if you're rushing the game, which I think a lot of reviewers did, including you maybe, you won't
Well,
see.
rushing the game. I spent 30 hours playing it. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, but were those 30 hours exploring or 30 hours
Well,
dying?
you finish what you're talking about, and then we'll talk about that.
Okay, well, all the little characters and NPCs, they have their own little stories. And if you read the email chains, you can read emails like in Deus Ex, and you can read notes, and you can listen to audio files like in Bioshock. But it's not only that. You can see like the places where people have died in the game, the corpses, and the items that are around the corpses and stuff. They all tell a story. The game has so much depth and so much nuance that I think it's being lost in a lot of the reviews that are out there, And a lot of people are trying to play it like it's Doom. Like they're rushing through it, trying to run and gun. They're thinking, oh yeah, the first gun I've got is a shotgun, so this is a run and gun game. It's a bloody stealth game, right? And not only that, is that it's a very, very story-driven stealth game, and you have to explore everything and really soak in the game's atmosphere and nuance to enjoy it properly. If you're trying to play it like a run and gun shooter, you're not going to enjoy it that much. And I think that's why a lot of people haven't really enjoyed it, is because they're playing it with the wrong mentality, which is a weird thing to say, because maybe it's a failing on the marketing or something that hasn't really gotten the point across that it's not really a straight run and gun shooter.
Let me ask
It's
you
more
this
of an
then.
RPG.
You think this is a failing of Bethesda's review policy? Because you mentioned reviewers maybe weren't playing it properly because they didn't have enough time to properly review the game, because everybody's got to get the reviews out. Everyone's got to rush to complete the game and finish their reviews. I feel like maybe the game would have been more properly played if, like every other game out there, they gave reviewers a week to play the game. So maybe that's this. You can chalk that up to Bethesda being Bethesda.
I think
On that end.
it's a bunch of factors. I think first of all, they shipped out a demo for Prey, and the demo had some really cool elements. Like if you played the demo, you'll know that the demo has a really cool twist in it and some really cool visual effects with the whole looking glass stuff. But you can't really get a sense of what the game actually is from the first hour of the demo, really. Because even I wanted to play it like a run and gun shooter. I didn't really follow the marketing campaign very much, as a lot of people won't for a new IP. Well, it's not a new IP, but you know what I mean. It's not a very well-known IP, and they should have treated it like it was a new IP if they weren't, which I presume they would have been, hopefully. But so anyway, you're not going to get a proper sense of what Prey is from the demo. And not only that, but the demo was a build from back in December, apparently, which is why it had really buggy, annoying audio. And it had a bunch of other bugs and, weird engine quirks and graphical issues and frame rate issues, which some of the frame rate issues are still present in the Xbox One version, but the audio system was fixed, which really annoyed me in the demo. Like the combat music would play for like a couple of minutes after combat had ended, which was really annoying in the demo and made combat feel disorienting. But they fixed that in the full game. But the demo probably did more harm than good, but it would have been rectified if Prey had any reviews to go along with its launch, and it didn't, because IGN had like review in progress, GameSpot got review in progress. A bunch of even the big huge outlets didn't get early access to Prey. You just got a few YouTube videos from people who managed to get the game early, from retailers that broke the sell by date.
And their partner streamers like Con Carnage and Dan's Gaming, the big Twitch streamers, they got it early too. Sponsored, of course.
How did they?
Yes.
Well, that's sponsored, so you can't trust them.
No,
But
of course not.
yeah. But I do believe that a combination of Bethesda's marketing messaging, the crappy demo, and also the review policy did screw this game. It really
Hmm.
badly screwed this game, and I think it probably screwed Dishonored 2 as well. Bethesda gave me 6 hours to review this game before the embargo.
Well, what screwed
6 hours.
Dishonored 2 was the release date. That's what screwed Dishonored 2.
Wow. Yeah. I haven't even gotten around to Dishonored 2 yet, which is
Dishonored 2 is good. But okay, here's where I'm going to tell you where you're wrong. Okay. So I put up my review basically an hour and a half ago for Prey. Finally finished it. 30 hours, first playthrough. And the shining star of Prey is Talos 1.
I agree
For
with that
sure,
completely.
100%. That world they
So
built
detailed.
is so detailed. There's so many different things to explore. Each of the areas you go to, whether it's the power plant, whether it's the arbitrarium, the crew quarters, each of those areas serve a specific function in the game, and they have so much cool
Yeah.
stuff to explore in. And that's what I
It
did in
feels
that
like
game.
a real space station.
Yes, it does. It
One thing
does. Go
one
ahead.
thing that really one thing that really got me, I just want to throw this in there, that like every whiteboard in the game has different
Mhm.
writing on it. Like
That is
like
true.
every room tells a story. It's just I can't get over how amazing the game world is. And I rate that highly. Like when I review games, I rate attention to detail very highly, and I felt Prey has one of the best game worlds that I've ever seen,
So
honestly.
I was sucked in because of the setting. The Talos One space station, so unique. You can even argue that maybe even better than Rapture, or in my opinion, just on par with Rapture. I literally wanted to explore every aspect of the space station. I read all the
Yeah.
emails. I listened to all the transcribes. I searched every nook and cranny to get everything I possibly could, which is why the next part is so frustrating to talk about, because the game is so good. The setting, the atmosphere, the story. Even though the story is kind of, it's definitely different because you are a mute character, right? Your main character doesn't talk. You're basically just, it's supposed to be a representation of you. I don't particularly like mute characters anymore. I feel like the industry, and we've grown past that, but it works from a thematic aspect for what they were trying to achieve. I get it. I just didn't particularly care for it. So all these great elements, the setting, the story, what they're trying to go, like this kind of dualist objectives, like are you going to do this? Are you going to do this? But then also kind of like helping people out on the space station, going out on for spacewalks where you can kind of do, like
Spacewalks are just
spacewalk
amazing.
is, you're doing that stuff. But the issue I have with the game and what held it back from being truly, truly one of the greats, and when I say that, like up there with Half-Life, up there with Bioshock, up there with Halo, was the combat. The combat is just not fun. The combat is not enjoyable. No matter any way you take it, whether you want to talk about run and gunning with the shotgun or in the combination of uses of the powers that you can get from the Typhons, I feel like you are too slow and too cumbersome um, to go up against those fast mimics or those phantoms. And it's interesting because I find it funny that one of the first guns you get, the first gun you get actually is a gun that slows down the fast enemies so you can hit them with your wrench. Now the glue gun is a cool gun, and its main purpose is to slow down those enemies, but it's also a cool gun because you can kind of get around the environment with it. But I kind of felt the
The game's
combat.
gravity gun.
Right. I kind of felt like the combat was just lackluster. Like the ability of not to aim down sights. Like that bothered me because you get this silenced pistol, but the silenced pistol is almost as inherently useless when you're trying to shoot things at
Oh
distance
no.
because you can't
No.
aim properly because the reticle bloom is not. And this is coming from someone who basically had as much ammo or as much shotgun stuff as I wanted because I was searching every nook and cranny and I had no issue creating any like sort of thing I wanted. I just didn't find the combat to be engaging on a level of Bioshock or anything else like that. And that is what truly held the game back. Now you can go watch my review. I talk about it more in there. Spoiler alert, I gave the game an 8.5 based on the fact that I loved everything else about Prey. Everything else about Prey. And this is, I didn't get a review copy like you did. I bought the game with
I
my money,
didn't. I bought it.
right?
My money.
Okay, we both bought it.
But
I bought the game, and
Bethesda unlocked it for me.
I loved it. I truly loved it. But I feel like if the combat was fun, and it's just not me, like Maka's been playing it, Gopher's been playing it, the people I've been playing with parties, none of them like the combat in the game. I feel like if the combat was good, I feel like I'd give the game a 9.5. It would be my game of the year. And I don't know if any game would touch it.
All noobs, man.
All noobs. I just don't like it, man. I just don't like it at all.
The combat is actually amazing, though. Actually, it's actually amazing. Yeah.
Actually, I don't know what makes it so amazing.
Amazing, because Morgan isn't a military superhero, right? He's a scientist, and
well, technically, he could be a military superhero. You have the neuromods. I mean, isn't that the whole story purpose?
I guess. But it says at the very start of the game, when you choose your difficulty, it says use your wits to survive. The enemies are designed to be more powerful than Morgan. They are designed that way. If you want to play it like Bioshock, then you have to put it on easy. Now, if you want to play it like Prey, you have to play it like the original Deus Ex and use the environment to your advantage and play it like it's a stealth game. On my second playthrough, I don't even use the glue gun because I've learned the Mimic's attack patterns so well that I can just hit them with my wrench without getting hit.
Yeah, but
I'm playing on hard.
That's on your second playthrough. That's not on your first. So when you have John or Mr. Megadeth or even BG from Weapon Wheel, basically, in that thread today, basically talking about, hey, everything else about the game's really cool except this combat, and that's not the only one. Like Maka talked about the combat. Like you're basically calling everybody noobs.
Yeah, I am.
Everybody noobs. Look,
they need to get good, man. It's like
it's a testament to Arcane that the game is so good.
It's like in Dark Souls, where like
one of the
you
worst
have to learn what the enemies do and react.
In a first person, it is just not fun to fight any of those enemies with any of the weapons that you have at all.
But it is, man. When
Jazz,
you set
the first two guns you get, the first two things you get in the game, right? One of the two, you get a gun that slows down enemies, and then you get a power that slows down time. What does that tell you? Why do you need these two things that slow down these fast enemies?
You
didn't need that. You didn't need that in Bioshock. You don't need that stuff in Call of Duty because it's easy to shoot those type of enemies.
Those games are easy. They're easy games for noobs. But this is a game for pro gamers such as myself. Now let me explain to you why you get guns that slow things down. They are for executing plans, right? And that's why there's a stealth mechanic. That's why there's a lean mechanic, is so you can see the enemies ahead of time. You can identify them with your psychoscope, add a tag to them, and then you plan your attack. So, for example, in the trauma center, in the demo, there is a flaming dude in there, a thermal phantom, I think they're called. And they're very, very powerful at the start of the game. And towards the end of the game, you've got all the upgrades. You can just fight them head on, no problem. 2 or 3 shotgun shells and they die. But at the start of the game, you need at least 8 shotgun shells to kill them. The game's been designed that way. And I'm going through it on hard right now. And I two-shotted that guy. I killed him in seconds. Because that room is full of explosive barrels.
Oh, I know.
It's full of explosive barrels for a reason. So what you do is you throw an item to make him walk to the explosive barrels with distraction. You use your time slow power, and then you shoot the explosive barrels, and they will blow him up. That's the combat of Prey. It's supposed to be a thinking man shooter, like old school, like System Shock, like Deus Ex. It's a throwback to classic sort of stuff.
Well, you're right. I mean, you're right. It basically is the game. If I had to describe the game, it's basically Bioshock and Deus Ex had a baby. You take the Bioshock, the setting of Rapture, and you have Talos 1. You take Deus Ex immersive sim. Basically, you can complete, and that's one of the other things I love about the game, and we haven't even really talked about. You can complete a lot of the objectives any way you want. Like if you want to invest in hacking and become ultra hacker, do that. If you want to be super lifter like Worrywart and just move shit out of your way to access stuff, you can do that too. Like, the possibilities are endless for how you want to tackle each of the stuff, and that's one of the reasons why I loved it so much. It's just the combat just wasn't good. I played it a lot like you did in the beginning. I just wasn't having any fun with it, and I felt like it could have been done better.
Well, play it on easy. Play it on easy.
I did. I switched it between hard, normal, and easy. I fucked around with the powers too. Trust me, like 30 hours spent in the game. I did a lot in that game.
So even with the Typhon powers, you didn't find it fun?
No, the Typhoon powers are cool. I just, but like the problem is like you get that stuff so late in the game. It's like Final Fantasy 13. You remember Final Fantasy 13 and how that game sucked?
I couldn't play
Right,
that.
I know, but like literally, people would tell you,
Too
"Oh, well,
terrible.
Final Fantasy 13 gets good 20 hours in." It's like, really, 20 hours in, you're telling me it gets good? You don't get Typhoon powers right away in Prey. And like you said, the demo came out.
When
It
do you get
leaves a
them in
bad
Prey?
impression. A lot of people, like, look, I was looking at the achievement statistics earlier for the game, right? You know how many people spoke to January for the first time, which is like the very beginning of the game, almost. Wouldn't you say? Maybe an hour into it, right? January.
Yeah.
You know how many people got that achievement?
Yeah.
48%.
I don't know.
So less than
What does
half
that
of the
mean?
people who bought and played Prey didn't even play it for more than an hour. That should tell you all you need to know, Jez.
Well, that's because they're noobs. They're just noobs, man.
I'm just saying, like, you get one chance. You get one chance at making a first impression. We've talked about this with other games. Hell, we talked about this with Xbox, right? You get one
They
chance,
should have
and
sold it as a hardcore. They should have sold it as a hardcore stealth game, because that's honest. Until you get the Typhon powers, and you can get them pretty quickly if you do go straight to them. It's the exploration which slows you down in Prey. So if you do go straight to the Psychotronics and get the Typhon powers, then you can play most of the game like a hyper-powered superhero. You know, you can play the game that way.
You can't go to Psychotronics until you have to go to Hardware Labs, because that's how you get the code.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is that they gave the game the wrong impression. A lot of people thought this was going to be Bioshock going in, but it shares way more in common with the original Deus Ex games. At least until you do get those Typhon powers. And I think if you do play it like a thinking man shooter, you'll enjoy it a lot more. You know, if you do play it like, by the time I got to the end, I was just using leverage 3 and throwing huge objects to kill enemies. You know, because like if you lift up like these huge metal crates, you can one shot like the more powerful phantoms. It's hilarious. But like the combat's what you make of it. You know, you have to find a play style that you enjoy.
Is what you make of it. It's like I would get to a new area and I would literally do everything else and go in every direction that wasn't the direction the game wanted me to go in. That's how I played this game. And I love this game. I honestly do. I gave it an 8.5. I feel like if the combat was better or more attuned to what I wanted, this game would be a 9.5. And I honestly think that it would be tough for any game to beat this for Game of the Year.
But I don't understand. I don't understand that argument, because you can play it any way you want. It's like Fallout 4. You know, I don't like playing melee classes in Fallout 4. I always play.
Fallout 4 is terrible. Most of the Fallout games are terrible.
Okay. Oh my god. You are a bad person, man. You are a bad.
Hopefully, Anchorman's listening to this, or somebody tells Anchorman I said that, and we'll see what he says.
Fallout 4 is not as good as Fallout 3.
Well, do you find it okay? Do you find it? Do you know how much shit Mass Effect got for its animation glitches and stuff? Fucking Bethesda makes games that are chock full of that nonsense, and they always get a pass. Always, especially the Fallout games.
Well, those aren't cinematic games, are they? They're dynamic sandboxes. That's why they get a pass. Mass Effect's supposed to be a highly tailored cinematic game. I don't know. I don't know, man. But my point is that in Fallout 4, in the Fallout games, you can tailor your combat to whatever you prefer. And you can do that in Prey. You can run around smashing things with a wrench if you want. You can run around using a shotgun, playing like to max pain, slowing down time and stuff like that. So I don't understand the argument that the combat's bad, because it gives you so many options for your play style. I didn't take a single Typhon mod when I played. I played it like a stealth game. But it sounds like you would have had more fun if you did take the Typhon mods.
Still screwed around with
so I am taking the Typhon mod.
I mean, I tried playing this stuff. It's one of the first trees I upgraded was the stealth stuff, so I could get the 250% extra damage to unaware enemies and things like that. I don't know.
Like stealth games.
I really do, but I wouldn't necessarily consider this a stealth game.
But it is. It is a stealth game.
But you just said yourself, it's whatever you want it to be.
So why didn't you play it like a stealth game then?
Because
you can play the game without killing.
I played it a mixture of different ways, But look, and we mentioned before we even got onto the podcast, like Bioshock Infinite. The only thing that this game does better than Bioshock 1 or Bioshock Infinite, the only thing, in my opinion, that it does better is that it's got the Metroidvania aspect, which you can go back to different areas, although that kind of gets a little tiring when you realize how much loading there is in between a lot of the areas. Ugh, so much fucking loading. Which is cool, because in the Bioshock games, you can't really go backwards. So it was really nice where you'd get a code for a place you visited a couple hours ago, and you finally get to go back there and search that stuff. That part is really cool. I really do like the enemies in the game, because I think the enemies are a little more different and a lot of different varieties compared to, say, Bioshock. But that's only two things I think it does better than Bioshock or any of the games like it. I think everything else, Bioshock or Bioshock Infinite does better.
Bioshock 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. And I do think Bioshock 1 overall is a better game. It has stronger characters. I really like that every area in Bioshock 1 has like a lead character to accentuate that area. I really love villains, and Prey doesn't really have a main villain. Kind of, it's very morally ambiguous.
No, it is because it's supposed to be. Because even though you're playing a character, it's supposed to be you. It's supposed to be you and your decision. It's why he doesn't talk. And initially,
it's an RPG. So
initially that kind of bothered me, but it makes sense. It does make sense when you actually you read some of the, because the ending, I'm not going to spoil anything, but the ending is very telegraphed. If you actually read all the stuff around the station, it's very telegraphed and very cool. Well, the after credits
shocked
ending.
Me.
The after ending credits is that ending's good. The one that's kind of before it's not, but we're not going to spoil that. I'd still recommend the game. That's the thing, though. I still recommend the game because I still think it's worth playing. I still think it's worth experiencing, whether it's that $60 to you today or whether that's $30 to you in a couple months, because I'm sure it'll be on sale because the sales numbers don't look good. I still think the game, despite its flaws, is worth playing and was one of the best games of the year.
It is the game. It's the best shooter on Xbox One today. I honestly will put that flagpole on there.
You know what? I can't wait to read you say State of Decay 2's game of the year when that comes out. 5 out of 5. I'm already predicting that. Windows Central, Jez Gordon, 5 out of 5, best game of the year, and he's going to be better than.
I don't give every game 5 out of 5. I didn't give Mass Effect Andromeda 5 out of 5.
Well, I mean, what are you going to do with that one? But hey, look, people like we got Sims saying Fallout is awesome. Rand is just weird. I liked Fallout 3. I didn't really care for 4 that much. Why do people think I'm weird? I'm just a gamer, dude. I'm just a gamer,
I agree. I didn't give Fallout. I gave Fallout 4 an 8 out of 10, I think, because I thought the story was abysmal. I can't even remember what it was.
Achievement percentage isn't a good sign. Only 79% of players played Rise for more than 10 minutes. I mean, yeah, but you can infer a lot of stuff from that. And don't think for a second that developers and stuff don't look. That's why Cliffy B for all those years said, hey, don't make single-player games because nobody finished a single player. And nobody believed them. And now that Sony and Microsoft have achievement statistics that you can look, and yeah, you look at it and you be like, Jesus, how many... look, an hour and a half in the game when you meet January, 50% of the people didn't even get that far. What do you think the percentages of people who actually finished Prey? And this is a single-player only game. There is nothing else to do in this game than play single-player. There's no multiplayer. There's no co-op, which can kind of skew the statistics, right? This is a single-player only game. And 50% of the people that played the game didn't play it for more than an hour. I could look.
It's not good data. Not good data.
What?
It's not good data because people rent games. People play games at their friends' houses. It's not good data.
Okay, you could argue the data's skewed in some aspects, but to say that the data isn't useful in any stretch, like, come on now.
Well, I will agree that I don't think Prey is going to do very well because of Bethesda's review policy, because of the confusing messages about the game's nature. I think a lot of people are expecting Bioshock when honestly they should be expecting Deus Ex, and I think because of that, the game is going to struggle. And it's a damn shame because it's a great game and it deserves to do better. And it's the kind of game that I want to see more of. I want single-player games with Metroidvania elements with huge, consistent worlds like Prey. I don't want shallow single-player campaigns like Halo 5 that are corridor simulators.
Well, okay. I mean, yeah, Halo. All right. Well, I mean, that's Halo 5. And I just don't... look, I want this game to do well. I mean, this game's been in production for 4 years. It's probably not going to do well. We're probably not going to get a sequel, but please play the game. I think a lot of you out there will enjoy it, especially if you enjoyed Bioshock or Deus Ex. The beginning of the game really isn't indicative of the full experience. Like if you played the demo, it's so
Ignore the
much more than
demo.
that.
Ignore the
Like
demo. The
Talos
demo
1,
is
the space
terrible.
station is just so good to just look around and just explore that whole area. Um, I highly recommend it. But let's talk about Far Cry 5, shall we? So
Yeah,
somebody
sure.
they were
Far Cry
filming a
5.
commercial. Far Cry 5. So they were filming. Well, I don't know if it's Far Cry 5 or a numbered Far Cry, but there was a company filming a live action trailer the other day in Montana or whatever, and it came out that they were filming a trailer for a game coming out this fall, and people figured out it wasn't Red Dead 2. The producer of the television commercial had worked previously with Ubisoft, and yeah, so people kind of figured out it was Far Cry 5. The rumor is it's launching in September, although the rumor is Red Dead 2 is launching in September, and who knows about that. Now, I will say this: I was told this exact stuff like 3 months ago that the next Far Cry was a spaghetti western. So like when I saw the rumor finally
I love
break out, I'm
that.
like, okay, this I don't know if it's Far Cry 5. I don't know if it's like an offshoot like Far Cry Primal. I just know that this game is real. I have no idea when it's coming out, but you would feel that
Well,
Ubisoft is probably pretty confident in the game if they're going to put it up against Red Dead 2.
yep. If this is really true, um, either Ubisoft are geniuses for putting it up against Red Dead Redemption 2, or they are psycho because it's not going to be as good. And it's going to be a Battleborn Overwatch scenario again.
Jeez, not that.
Yeah. So I love Western games. I love them.
Hmm.
There's not enough of them. I love the Wild West. I love Clint Eastwood. I love all that stuff. So if it is true and it's Far Cry and it's awesome, because I really like Far Cry Primal. It was one of my favorite games of last year. I'm totally get on board with that. Even if it does come out the same month of Red Dead Redemption 2, I think I'll probably get Far Cry first and then go back to Red Dead later.
I mean,
What do you
part
think?
of me also believes that Red Dead 2 is not coming out this year. I still think it'll get its typical delay, and you got to think Ubisoft feels the same too, right? Because like if they were going to push and market, I mean, if they're filming a live trailer for this already, unless like Red Dead is scheduled to come out in November, I would assume like if you're Western and you're coming out against Red Dead 2, you're going to get killed. I don't care what game you are, right? I mean, I know Far Cry is a big franchise, but I'm sorry, this is Rockstar. So I don't know if this makes more sense if they know that Red Dead's not coming out, or if they know Red Dead. Maybe Red Dead 2 is coming out in November. Maybe Far Cry 5 will come out end of September, and then you could have Red Dead 2 come out in November, and maybe they wouldn't impact each other enough, right? But I still feel like if I had to make a bet, I would bet that Red Dead 2 is coming out. It'll get delayed and come out in a typical Rockstar fashion in May, like they usually do, right? Um, but I'm excited for new Far Cry. I didn't play Primal yet. I do have Primal. I haven't played it. I really enjoyed 3. I think Far Cry 3 is my favorite, and I also enjoyed 4, even though it was a carbon copy of 3. I'm still a fan of the series. Um, and hey, I mean, it sounds like also the Assassin's Creed stuff, Jazz. We talked about that before the show. The leak, the picture, the screenshot, all that stuff. That's all 100% true too. So
Yeah, I think I'm worried though because Ubisoft, they're so formulaic, man. They never do anything new. So like if Far Cry is spaghetti western, it'll just be it could just end up being a skin. And I'm really
mhm.
excited for Far Cry Primal because I thought that maybe it was going to have survivalism aspects, like you got to survive, you've got to maybe hunt animals and get supplies, and there was some elements of that, but they were so weak and just sort of they were more like a chore than a game mechanic. And it's because Ubisoft just love to play it safe. They don't like to do anything too complicated. It's almost like they expect their user base to just like the fan base of some of these games to not be that smart or something. So I'm if they do make a new Far Cry, I'm hoping that it has something unique about it, other than having cool characters and stuff
My
like
buddy
that.
Gopher takes issue with what you just said, Jez. He says, yeah, because For Honor wasn't anything new.
Well, For Honor is a exception to the rule.
Exception to the rule. Okay.
Well, it is, and
But
For Honor
nobody
doesn't
plays
count
For
because
Honor anymore, right? I mean, just like Division, nobody played Division after 2 months later. Nobody's playing For Honor right now, too, for pretty much the same reasons.
And Rainbow Six Siege isn't exactly, unique. It's just Counter-Strike with,
Well, it's
some
unique in the console
destruction.
market.
Well, yeah, but it's not exactly, groundbreakingly amazing. It's just a pretty fun game with microtransactions. And For Honor is like,
I think, Jazz, you'd probably love the game if you were good at it, bro. Get good.
I do like Rainbow Six. I just don't have time to play it really, and I do suck at it, I admit. But For Honor is a joke because the servers suck, and the microtransactions in that game are way too aggressive. That's the thing, though. Even when they do have cool ideas, they derail them by adding all this stuff like microtransactions in.
Well, it's because games take the budgets for these games are insane, and we've been paying $60 for games for a long time now. Inflation hasn't, affected games. They for whatever reason they don't want to raise the standard game price to $70. They feel like the backlash from gamers would be ridiculous if they decided, hey, by the way, State of Decay 2 is $70, or Last of Us 2's $70, or whatever. The first game to do that, even though they want to, because they feel like that extra $10 of revenue would help out a lot. So you got to pack in all these microtransactions, right? All these microtransactions.
Yes.
And you know what? If you could make an argument, if the microtransactions weren't in Gears 4, would we even see a Gears 5?
Nope, we wouldn't.
Right? I mean,
so
a lot of these microtransactions games afloat.
That is an interesting point you just made, that game prices haven't increased. I think they probably should, I think they probably should.
People would lose their minds, dude. If they came out tomorrow and said, by the way, if EA said tomorrow, like, all their games are $70 and Microsoft said the same, could you remember the time where Microsoft games and Sony games were $50 and then the third-party games are $60? Remember the first Gears, I think, was $50 because obviously you don't need to pay yourself royalty fees when it's your game, right? So the first party games were $10 cheaper, but then obviously they realized, well, free money, lol. And first party games were $60 across the board, and every game was $60. I think there'd be so much pushback from gamers, like on NeoGaf on Twitter. People would cry like little bitches if the companies decided to implement like a $70 baseline. They would cry and cry and cry.
I think some games would get away with it. I bet you, like, for example, I don't know, Battlefront 2 could probably get away with being $70. I think the next Call of Duty could get away with being $70. I honestly think they could. I don't think Halo could, because people they love hating Microsoft. But I think some games could get away with creeping up in price to
the big ones could, like Grand Theft Auto could, Call of Duty could.
Oh yeah, if Red Dead Redemption 2 nails it, then that could easily be $70.
But yeah, a lot of games could nail that stuff. So yeah, we're getting towards the end because I got a final coming up soon. So if you guys got any questions you want me and Jez to answer, and we will be glad to answer any questions you have. I'm going to scroll up because I did see someone had a question for us up here. Let me see if I can find it. I don't know. I see Jez just deleting people's posts and stuff. That's what I see.
Yeah, it's really funny because the same Sony fanboys come every week just to be dicks, and I just love timing them out because I know how mad it makes them.
Well, why do they come if they're just going to get timed out?
I don't know. It's funny. It's like, what? It's the evening. Go and get drunk. Go and get a girlfriend or something. Instead of listening to two guys talk about a console they don't even like. I don't get it. It's so weird and sad.
I mean, we don't necessarily always talk about. I mean, we just talk about gaming in general. I mean, obviously, we both play an Xbox only right now, but I mean, if there's Sony stuff, we'll talk about Sony stuff. I mean,
Yeah, I haven't got any problems at all with Sony. They're an
yeah.
awesome company, and they make awesome systems, and they make awesome games. They make games that I'd like to see on Xbox, but I just don't have time for two systems in my life right now. That's why I
So
don't play
Sam
PlayStation.
says, where do you think the next Splinter Cell game will take place? Whew. Um, I have no
England.
clue. I have no clue where the next Splinter Cell game would take place. Where I just want another Splinter Cell game. I don't necessarily care where it takes place. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I played some of the Forza Horizon DLC, the Hot Wheels DLC. Have you played any of that?
I've still not played a Forza game ever.
Jesus, why am I doing this podcast with you? You don't even play
I don't
like the
like
best game on
racing games.
Xbox. Jesus,
I don't
Jez.
like racing games. There's no guns. You can't even run people over in Forza. What's the point of it?
Right.
Uh,
I'm enjoying the DLC. I'll have a proper review up for it pretty soon when I finish the stuff. But Jez, I see there's a question for you. What's going to be the most impressive game for Scorpio D3 from Big Daddy Tomcat?
Battlefront 2, baby. Battlefront 2 is going to be 4K on Scorpio, and it's going to be amazing. We heard today that in EA's investor call that Battlefront 2 has 3 times more content than Battlefront 1, which isn't hard considering how little content there was in Battlefront 1, but it bodes well. It bodes well for the future. So
Bodes well.
I think Battlefront 2 is going to be a showstopper for Scorpio, but I think if you're a racing fan, it's going to be Forza 7 that really showcases the hardware, because they're going to use all that overhead, so it's hard to say. But there's going to be games that we don't even know about get announced. So
That's true. Just like this one, Samuel Tolbert. What's up, dude? He says, do you think we'll see a Cyberpunk 2077 trailer at E3 this year?
Cyberpunk,
Uh,
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no. I don't think Cyberpunk's. The thing is with CD Projekt Red, they know that people are desperate to see Cyberpunk 2077, so they don't have to hype that game up at all. It's going to hype itself up, and it'll be like Fallout 3, where they just announce it last minute. They'll announce it like the same year that it's going to come out, and they'll say this is the game we've been working on, and it comes out in 6 months. That's how they're going to do it. So we probably won't see that game until 2018, 2019, I think. But yeah, we'll see.
I wish. I mean, I want to see that game, and Witcher 3's been done for 2 years now. It came out in 2015. And they could start the hype train by having a new trailer for Cyberpunk, not a CGI trailer. It doesn't even have to be gameplay. I wouldn't be surprised if a trailer for Cyberpunk showed up at all. It'd definitely
Possibly.
be cool if it did.
Possibly.
Any leaks on the Assassin's Creed Empire? Yeah, we talked about that a few minutes ago. All the screenshot, all that info is pretty much 100% true. I heard it's going to be on stage at Microsoft show. It would be marketed with Xbox, which is not surprising considering Sony pretty much blew all their entire money on the 4 big games this holiday. So there's that stuff. Black Rider wants to know if Crackdown was delayed for Project Catapult to be fully implemented. Project Catapult.
I don't know what Project Catapult is.
You do?
What is Project Catapult? I've never heard of it.
I don't
What
know.
is it?
I don't know if you meant Project Scorpio. Was Crackdown delayed for Project Catapult to be fully implemented? If you meant Project Scorpio, I would say I don't know about that one because I heard last year, at E3 last year, that Crackdown 3 had ran into some problems, dev-wise. So
I don't know, man. I think Crackdown 3 is definitely coming out. It's not going to be a Scalburn scenario, but it does have really complicated tech behind it. The cloud powered GPU stuff. So I do think that whatever delay they're making is going to be worth it in the end, because it will result in a better game. I know that Crackdown 3 works today because I saw it at E3 behind closed doors, live, running from the cloud, and it was amazing. The destruction was so impressive. And if you remember Red Faction Guerrilla, the destruction tech they had in that was pretty impressive.
yeah,
But my God, the stuff they've put into Crackdown is just next level. So I do think Crackdown 3 is going to be a very special game if you're into those kinds of games. And it'll be worth the wait. I think it really will be worth the wait.
So did
Samuel
you?
says Catapult was a data center upgrade. I don't think the data center upgrade will be anything to do with Crackdown. I think no. I think Microsoft has enough clouds for Crackdown.
Nah.
Project Catapult was probably more cloud focused, enterprise focused, I would expect.
Now, before we get out of here, did you see that Nielsen survey that was released today? By the way, about the PS4 Pro and the Project Scorpio stuff, because it's interesting. We talk about like what would be the adoption rate of these systems moving forward and stuff like that, and
Mm.
put out a report, and it's from the U.S. Games 360 report, right? And it looked at purchasing intentions of consumers, and it said that 13% of American gamers aged 13 and plus will probably buy Microsoft's upcoming console named the Scorpio, while it'd be 15% for the Pro, 16% on the Switch, right? Standard PS4 is 21%, and Xbox One standard 17%. So that's American gamers age 13 plus, right? Now, if you look at the general American population age 13 or plus, it's 9% see Scorpio as a purchase, 11% for the Pro, 12 for the Switch, 15 for PS4, and 12% for Xbox One. It's very interesting to talk about awareness of these things, right? Um, I don't know if this really means anything in the
Mm.
long run. I mean, we've talked
I
about
don't think so.
Scorpio being for the hardcore, and the hardcore know all about
Microsoft
it, you know?
Microsoft haven't started marketing Scorpio yet. The only people talking about Scorpio right now are social media, Twitter, and game sites. There isn't a single Scorpio billboard. There isn't a single Scorpio TV ad. There is no Scorpio advertising yet. So you need to wait until that actually happens
Right.
before we can make a
Uh,
true judgment on that.
yeah, I figure it was interesting to talk about, and I mean, obviously, it's no surprise the base PS4, base Xbox One are the ones people are more interested in because they're the cheaper option. Um, but maybe we'll talk about that in the next show. But I did see another question here that's kind of interesting from Face23BKNY Rand. Do you think Sony or Microsoft should release any exclusives during the fall with so much competition? Um, I think it depends on the game. I think Sea of Thieves should not release in the fall against all that competition. I think they need to find a different window. Um, I think last year proved that you don't want to release your games in that time frame, especially if you're a smaller game. Um, so if Microsoft's same, and that kind of goes for State of Decay 2. Like State of Decay 2 should come out before all that stuff. Crackdown 3, if it's like a launch title, might be fine. Forza Motorsports, it's a racing game, might be fine because it's like maybe doesn't really uh, cross with any of the big shooters. But yeah, I mean, I've heard talk that Sony think the God of War thing, like maybe it's just better, even though the game might be possible to come out in October, then it might be more beneficial for Sony to just delay it to March. Because I mean, if you look at Horizon Zero Dawn as an example, because that was supposed to come out in the fall, would Horizon Zero
Mm.
Dawn sell as much in the fall if or sell as much as it did in the spring if it came out in the fall? Would it have sold 2.7 million units if it came out against Battlefield 1 and Titanfall 2 and Watch Dogs 2 and all those other games? I don't think it would have. I don't think it would be as big as a
Uh,
franchise, or at least the start, as it would have. So, I mean, I don't
yeah, I
know.
think Horizon Zero Dawn. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know much about Horizon Zero Dawn, but if it's as good as people say, then I don't think sales would have been impacted too badly by launching in that quarter. Not to the degree that some other games would have been,
I
because
do
it
feel
seems like a
like
really solid game. I think God of War could perform very well in quarter four and quarter three.
right.
If it's as good as it looks, I think God of War looks like the kind of game that I would pick up a PS4 for. It looks pretty
Right. But I
incredible.
mean, but games compete against each other for money. I mean, if you buy this game and that game, you're gonna have money for something else. Like that's why release windows are so important. So I mean, I want to see Sea of Thieves succeed, so they shouldn't release it this fall. I think Crackdown could do well no matter when it comes out. Probably maybe even better if it came out at a different time. But I mean, hey, you need something to launch your system with. So, um,
Yeah, we'll see.
one more question and then we're out of here. Random Jazz is from Buddha Nukem. Do you feel like Scorpio would make a bigger splash if it dropped the first week in September just before just before Destiny 2 kicks off the fall gaming lineup. That's
I,
interesting.
Probably, yeah. You know, I think the sooner Scorpio comes out, the better. You know,
Mhm.
and it has to come out when the software is ready. And I don't think the software is going to be ready for September. It needs Redstone 3 for the Windows 10 Redstone 3 update, and I think we're a bit far away. September's just too early. I'm just going to say October for Scorpio. That's an educated guess, not a leak.
Right.
I'm staking that on October.
I mean, it would help. It would help with some of their penetration of getting out there that, hey, these games are better on Scorpio and stuff. But I just don't think it's going to be ready by September. So I
Well,
think
the
if they can
hardware
get
is
it
going
out,
to be better, not the software.
right? I think if they can get it out before November, I think that's the time people are more willing to spend money is for the holiday season. I'm sure the hardcore would love to, the hardcore will buy it, but more people might buy it when it gets closer to that holiday season when they buy gifts for each other and things like that. But anyways, guys, that's going to be it for the show. I got to head off to my last final for the semester. Jez has to go drink some alcohol and write about Prey some more because how much he loves it. You can follow Jez on Twitter. The link is in the description. Hit that like button, sub to the channel. Follow us all on the social media if you haven't already. We appreciate it. And what are you doing the rest of the week, Jez? Before we get out of here, what are on your plans?
Well, I've got some Scorpio dev kit leaks to write up. Some cool pictures and video clips, so look out for that on Windows Central. Similar to the LCD panel leak, nothing major. We pretty much know everything about Scorpio now, aside from any surprises. Beyond that, I'm actually working on build stuff at the minute, Windows and Surface related stuff. I don't know. I don't know what to write about for Xbox at the minute. I'm going to write an article based on what franchises should be revived. So, like Age of Empires. I really want to see a new Age of Empires.
Right.
But I think that would work very well on Xbox. It'd need a mouse and keyboard. It's a lot more complicated than Halo Wars. So, I don't know. If you've got any suggestions for game franchises you'd like to see revived for my roundup, send me one on Twitter at Jez Corden, and maybe I'll stick it in there. Legacy of Kain as well. Have you got name one franchise, Red, before we go, that you'd like to see revived?
Dead Space.
Dead Space. Yeah, that's going to be on there. Don't you worry, pal.
Yeah. Yeah. And as for me, I got a lot of videos to be dropping soon. I just dropped my Prey video before the podcast, my review for check that out if you haven't. I'll have a Forza Horizon 3 review for the DLC for Hot Wheels out tomorrow when I finish it. I got reviews coming up for Narcosis. Some of the indie games out the rest of this week, like Butcher, maybe Lethal League, Human Fall Flat, a whole bunch of stuff, and then obviously more daily content. As I'm trying to do better stuff. What I'm trying to do is I need a better PC. So like when I make enough money on YouTube, essentially, I'm gonna buy a new PC so I can make better videos because I know people don't like looking at
Surface.
My
Studio,
PC
baby.
is literally like 6 years old. So like when I finally it takes so long to render some of the videos, but
Surface Studio, man. Surface Studio.
Yeah, that's way out of my price range. But hopefully soon I can buy a new PC and then I can make better and more constant videos for everybody out there. But anyways, guys, thanks for tuning in to Xbox 2. This has been episode 8, and we will see you next Wednesday. Have a good one, guys.
Peace out.